So this one is a special one, very special, because we had a viewer's question, which is...
Well, Erwin De Wit, or Erwin De Wit, mentioned, or commented, if you like, on the YouTube video, last YouTube video, Kingdom of Cards, what are the board games you really enjoy? And have you also played around with 1980s home computers like the Speccy, C64, Amiga, etc.? So there's two questions there, really.
I can pause there. Because here they are, ready to rock.
There they are. So that's the Amiga 500. What's the other one?
I think this is a Commodore. It's Commodore 64. Slightly discoloured. Obviously, the best game on the Commodore is Gunfighter, as we all know. The grandfather of survival horror. Should we do board games first, do you reckon?
Yeah, because
that's a briefer conversation. Then,
yeah.
I always start talking when we do these videos, so I'll let you go first.
Right.
So me now, right? No, right.
So board games.
Just a really funny
yeah,
joke.
I mean, because we do have semi-regular board game nights. We need to arrange another, really. But we tend to get quite into one game and play it for many, many hours. And I suppose the latest one has been Eternal Darkness, partly because our friend... Massive Darkness. Eternal Darkness is a game on GameCube. Great game. Needs a remaster. Massive Darkness. Partly because our friend has spent so much money on it. He spent like 350 quid or something.
Totally
speaking of 350 quid, there's a Darksiders board game coming out.
Right.
Which costs 350 quid. But it...
Does it crash halfway through and delete my save?
No, that's Darksiders 2. It was a video game.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty cool, actually, and it's got like figures and stuff like that, and so I might be worth looking into it. Anyway, but Massive Darkness is a really cool, like, it's like a kind of really highly updated version of like Hero Quest or something, I guess.
Yeah, like an RPG, a board game RPG.
But it's really, really involved, and it takes about 3 hours to do one map. It's brilliant.
It's sometimes like just going around. How many of us? There's like me, you, Sexy Dave, Lee, Max, 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the 5 of us, you're talking like 20, 25 minutes to go around. But I love that. I love because I love RPGs, I love the fact that like you have to really think about every single move. I have no problem
everything. And it's so, like, even taking a turn, there's so many rules involved, so many buffs on your player. You're like, how many dice am I rolling at this point?
Yeah.
And like, if I roll that amount of dice, how many extra kind of hits?
And has anyone else got any buffs that like sort of help me in a secondary way before? Yeah.
Yeah, and it almost feels like you're making up as you go along, but really there are some very strict rules to it. But it's really cool, really involved Hero Quest type thing.
And the reason there's semi-regular, as you say, like every like 3 or 4 months, is because obviously 5 people, like families and jobs and stuff. You can't just casually say, pop around and play Frustration for 20 minutes. It's like, this is all day. There's by the time you set everything up, it's an hour. You need a full day to play it, which is fine. I love it.
But it is a brilliant game, because we started our semi-regular nights playing Dungeon,
which is only like about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. So, and so we still got our WhatsApp group, which is Dungeon, !
Good.
Which is quite a basic kind of game in that vein. And since then we played...
We went through Hero Quest.
Yes, Hero Quest, which is great. We haven't played Space Crusade yet. We need to get that. So,
yeah. We need to have like more regular nights, really.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's good. What else have we played? Well,
do you think we should go back to... Because for me, board gaming was like a really weird thing. So
Key to the Kingdom. That was the one I was trying to think
Key to the Kingdom.
of.
That was the one we have to flip the board, isn't it?
That's the one where you kind of open
like
up the board and there's another. Yeah, you go through the whirlpool and there's
Yeah, that was really good.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Because that's more of a direct one, isn't it? That's more of like get the key, bugger off sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is, but like when I grew up like I'm 35, so in the 80s, board games I found them really tedious because I had an Amstrad CPC 4646 when I was like 4, so which obviously is going on to the computer gaming side of stuff. But I used to see board games like sort of precursors to video games.
Yes. I think that's an important point. It will lead us into the video game part. But yes, I absolutely agree that at the time it seemed like a lesser art form, the board game.
Yeah, it's like, why would I want to do that when I can just like play Death with Tree on the
Exactly.
Commodore?
Why play Hero Quest on the board
when you can play it on the screen? And I think as well, more importantly, my brother's 7 years younger than me. So for the first, like, say, 11, 12 years of my life, he was too young to really do anything. So when I was growing up, I didn't know anything about Hero Quest. Board games to me were like Frustration, Monopoly, Cluedo. You know, the real, I don't know, stuff I still don't really enjoy today.
Kind of family games, really.
Yeah,
so
it was like nice to play with my parents because it was them playing a game with me. But
they weren't immersive.
No, no one put on like a paper crown and got behind.
Yeah,
like
there was no dungeon master.
Yeah, Dad the Dungeon Master, cracking album. But so it was only when I got a bit older and then played Hero Quest. But the thing is about board games as well, the ones that we spend most of our time with, like essentially Hero Quest like games. You need everyone else to be on the same level.
Yes.
You can't have someone dicking around because not that it's all immersive and we talk in like elven tongues, but when someone just like gets bored after a while, you think, oh, there's no point playing this because no one's taking it seriously.
It's true, actually. I haven't really noticed, but it's true that when we have those days, because it is a full 12-hour session sort of thing, no one ever, it's never like anyone's ever like, oh, I'm done with this. Can we play something else? It's like we are full on all
until
the way
it's 1 a.m. and
literally we only stop when it's just like
I'm knackered.
I'm so tired now from standing around this table.
And it's really mentally draining. Hunched over the pieces, hunched over the unpainted pieces because we don't go that far.
No, we haven't gone that far yet.
So yeah, it was only when we started doing this that I got into. And obviously, Faye and I do board game nights where we get games like Heartthrob and Dreamphone, best board game ever made.
We'll discuss the Dreamphone
at length. So I see board games now as much more fun than I find board games now in my 30s much more fun than when I was a kid.
Yeah, after like 30 years of video gaming.
Because I understand the scope of them and I understand the appeal now. Like, and of course, I didn't have like. Not to bring the tear down, when I was a kid, I didn't have many friends who shared the same interests as me.
Yeah.
So that's why all the games I love are single-player, narrative-driven, because that's what I like. And that's what I like in a board game. So I don't want to play something like Frustration where you roll a dice and move a coloured dot around the board. I want to play something where it's going to take 4 hours to set up.
Yeah, exactly.
Put that in your skirt.
Yeah, so overall, immersion. I think that probably is the key.
You put that on your walls, don't you, before you paint?
It's emulsion.
I thought that's what you feel.
It's emotions.
I thought there was a game on the Amiga.
It's emotions. You done?
Yeah. Scene. Yeah. So yeah, the emotion is key because without it, the paint. No, because it's. I want that depth. I want that kind of.
It's something about this, because there's nothing in video games, for example, where you can basically have 5 dudes around a table, like all getting really into it, like. Because you can't play 5-player Skyrim or something like that, can you? Like, there really isn't anything. Like, if you're going to play 5-player video game, it's always going to have an arcade. Yeah, it's always going to be like that. And even then, you're not going to be playing it for 12 hours, really, unless you're doing one of
because they're all quite
streams.
shallow, kind of. Yeah.
So it's the only way you can get that kind of deep RPG experience.
Yeah.
And something like Massive Darkness really works there because you've got like 3-hour maps, so you can play 3 of them, and it's an amazing all-day experience. Yeah. And you can listen to awesome music.
Yeah.
While you're doing it.
Yeah, I think one time when we were playing Hero Quest or Dungeon, we literally just had on the sound of like a cave dripping in the background.
Yes.
Good.
Brilliant.
Good.
Yeah.
And amazing, we both got girlfriends. So board games. So we both had quite similar experiences then with board games.
I think so, yeah.
Like left them for like 20 years and then realised.
Like when in my childhood, like.
Because you had brothers, didn't you? So.
Yeah, and I went around to my friend's house, and Hero Quest was the one that first really gripped me, but also Space Crusade, which is basically the sci-fi version of Hero Quest. Never really progressed onto like Warhammer or anything like that, I've got to admit. Although I suspect if I'd had the same kind of outlook now, back then if I'd had the same outlook as I do now, I probably would have progressed to that. But like you say, it was very much like, at the time, we were young at the time when video games were really opening up. Like, it was post 8-bit, So we're just into the kind of 16-bit era,
Yeah.
and so games were getting a bit deeper. And
Yeah.
you could have like quite deep RPGs and stuff like that, and so therefore it was almost like why would I be playing?
And you could play Hero Quest, or I believe it was Hero Quest 2 Legacy of Sorrowsill.
Yes.
You could play, which is what I played the most of, essentially a board game in the virtual world, single player.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, this is just the next step. I don't even need to have people around me who are like going to lose interest in half an hour just as I'm getting into this game. I can actually just play it by myself and live the dream. Thinking about it, there are games like XCOM now, but why haven't they made a digital version of something like Hero Quest and updated it? You've got a Hand of Fate, but that's more...
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're more card based.
Yeah.
I mean, they do make they do make board games, like straight up board games, like Settlers Catan and things like that.
Oh, okay. I'm really excited. I might have to look into this.
But I suppose, in a way, it's like now, because board games are a big industry in themselves, a massive industry in themselves, it's almost like if you're really into that sort of game, you're probably going to play the physical version of it,
Yeah.
if you see what I mean. Because they're bigger than they've ever been, really. There's such a massive industry out there.
Yeah. So moving on to like the 8-bit systems. Again, for me, like the first computer I had was an Amstrad, and then for me in the 80s it was like I had an Amstrad, and then I had my uncle's Amiga,
Amstrad CPC
464, and then moved on to I never had a Spectrum. I played a Spectrum once, and I remember finding it really basic.
I had a Spectrum later, weirdly. I inherited
I've got
one
one
in
now.
the 90s, and it seemed really basic. It's a weird one.
I used to really love Text Adventures, and there were some really good ones on the Spectrum, so I remember playing those. Cause
it was quite exciting, because when I must have inherited my stepdad or something, and it was just like a big box of games, and discovering these games and like booting each one up and finding out what it was quite exciting. But I mean, the thing is, what you can't do, and this is why you should never try and teach your kids, try and force your kids to like the things you liked in youth. Like, if you try and, without the nostalgia factor, it's very difficult to like enjoy old technology, basically.
I will say as well that what I did like in the 80s and 90s, like when you were in like a car boot sale, or when you inherited something off a relative, which is how it would go at the time, because of course something we should talk about is like gaming was not cool in the 80s. It was not
We need
cool.
to discuss that.
So I would get like my uncle or like at a car boot sale, I'd go there and someone would be selling like a briefcase full of Amiga games for like £2, so I could buy that with my pocket money.
Yeah.
And I've got 60 games, well, obviously pirated. Or you get a Commodore off someone and they've just got loads of copied games. So you're paying like pittance, but then you sit there and the joy is almost in just seeing what, like Ninja Massacre, I mean obviously it's just a gauntlet rip-off.
Seeing what works.
Yeah, seeing what works, and like the loading screens and the tension sitting there with a glass of squash and just like experience them for the first time was kind of a big thing of it. Like I remember like now, whereas I will put a game on and play it for hours on end, then I would flick through games every like 10-15 minutes.
Yes. Not here. Obviously, you've completed all of these, so...
Oh, yeah. I mean, the amount of times I've finished Gex Deep Cover Gecko and then moved straight on to Killer Loop, Flintstones Bowling, and then boom, Wu-Tang Taste the Pain. I mean, busy man.
On the... which one was it? Was it the Dreamcast, where you could just literally copy them onto CDs?
Yeah, it was the GD-ROM. So the way you got around... I've got a folder full of Dreamcast games, entirely legal. I'll edit that out. Where as long as you burn them at like 1 or 2 speed, you can just burn the ROM of a Dreamcast game and it removes the copy protection.
It's like the classic Amiga days,
Yeah.
really, isn't it? But yeah, maybe we should just discuss briefly that issue of uncoolness, and it's something that has come to mind because of things like Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Because of the 80s nostalgia.
Because of the romanticised nostalgia of it all?
Which is nice, and it's nice to see that kind of... I like the fact that there's a resurgence of that kind of sincerity and innocence, fine, but what is unusual, let's say, about the culture today is that romanticizes like 80s geek culture.
Yeah.
But it wasn't cool at the time, and it was really, really nerdy. And when we were growing up, actually, like around the time of like Sega versus Nintendo and stuff like that, it wasn't. There was nothing cool about being into video games and stuff like that, and it was something that actually, it wasn't anywhere near the mainstream really, and it actually made you an outcast to admit that you were, like a computer nerd, and you just wanted to go home and play Sonic 2.
I remember my uncle, who's like, he must be like 15, 20 years older than me. I remember like I'd be sitting there in my Amstrad playing something like Curse of Sherwood, and he would like open the door and say, "Oh, no girls around then."
Like, well, technically no. Although Maid Marian isn't far away.
If you take another step, there'll be a girl in you. Yeah, yeah. It's Maid Marian is not far. Oh my god. Okay, guess the game, right? Welcome to Dragon Gate.
Curse of Sherwood.
No, that was Super Robin Hood by the Oliver twins, wasn't it?
Okay.
Because what threw
Wasn't
you off?
it? Like, oh yeah, sorry, silly me.
What threw you off was, I said, "Welcome to Robin Hood,"
Yeah.
but I sounded like someone playing with a zip on a sleeping bag underwater.
Always throws me off.
Yeah. So yeah,
Hey.
it was not cool. Like even in, I remember even in the school playground when you go around and people say, "What are you doing this weekend?" And I knew for a fact I was going to play Landstalker and Shining Force. I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Probably like go to probably play football."
Probably pull some birds.
Yeah, probably shout at some rocks. And
Like all the cool kids.
with my dad, he generally does that. But yeah, it was never cool, and I think the moment when it became cool was when I was well into my 20s. Because I remember having
PlayStation.
I remember having
had a big
yes.
effect.
I remember having like entire relationships where I like had to kind of just not game because it was like, "Are you playing that?" And you're like, "No."
Yeah, there were definitely periods of my life, like I think going to university, for example, and I really want to make a good impression of people, like make out like I was actually pretty cool. So there was quite a period there where it was quite light on gaming actually, because I was trying to like socialise.
Yes.
Be what other people kind of expected of me, rather than being who I really wanted to be.
Which is someone which is sitting at home playing Jet Set Willy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly what I secretly wanted.
Well,
to
this
be.
is key when people talk about the socialising thing is really interesting, because when people talk about our age, talk about like, "Oh, I did loads of gaming in university," and you think, "Oh, GoldenEye, Mario Kart,
Yeah.
all social events." They never sat in their room playing like Extreme G3 alone.
That's a great game.
So again, like you say, but then that was 95, 96, which is when the whole PlayStation wipeout made it cool.
Yeah, and it was a weird shift, and it felt quite jarring actually when PlayStation came along, and it was obviously quite calculated on Sony's part to try. It was quite clever in a way, because basically the people who'd been brought up on video games were young kids in the 80s,
Yeah.
maybe like young teens in the early 90s, or like 10-year-olds or whatever, and then of course PlayStations were 95, so it would have been like teenagers wanting, like, who were quite cool in other ways actually, and so it was appealing to like the cutting edge. In a way, it was the first generation where gaming could be cool in a way.
Accepted. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your sort of, so for me, like, because the question from Erwin was literally about like the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So for me it was like I had an Amstrad, my uncle had a Commodore, and then eventually my other uncle gave me his Amiga.
Yeah.
And that was my sort of stepping
Doesn't sound
stones.
unlike my journey. Amstrad, CPC.
Good.
And the first game I ever played was Star Glider.
Was Mercenary the sequel to that?
No, you're thinking of Mercenary and Damocles. And
Yes, sorry.
But I would say that they were, like, the Mercenary games did lead on from that. Damocles was the first truly like open world or open worlds game I ever played. But yeah, so it's Star Glider really. But the first system that I really got into was, because we got an Amiga 500 at launch, so about 1987.
6, 7, yeah.
And that just opened it all up. And the thing is, I had 3 older brothers, so
That must have been really expensive.
to get an Amiga 500 at that time, it was 400 quid or something.
Yeah.
And that was before they did kind of do a kind of soft relaunch of it, where they had the Batman pack, if you remember,
Yes.
And that was a massive deal at the time because they were trying to really like. Think about that was like a couple of years out in 1989.
Yeah,
Batman the movie was the biggest movie of that year. Getting that exclusivity deal and having it as bundled in with the system was such a big deal.
I loved how the health bar was the Joker's face.
Yeah,
in that game. Still cool.
Game.
Still cool.
Very challenging.
That's the one that starts off in like Acme Chemicals, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool because it's got different. It's got different sub games, isn't it? So you've got Acme Chemicals, which is kind of platformer, almost like what's that game called where you can't jump and you just Bionic Commando?
Bionic Commando, yeah.
Yeah. So it's that kind of like platform where it's quite methodical.
Yes.
That was cool. And then you'd have like the racing sections where you have to time the
and swing around the sides, yeah.
Swing around the corners. And then you'd have the one where the puzzly type bit where you have to work out the chemical combination. Was that a
slide-in puzzle thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. And that was a good game. So, and obviously a great movie. Best Joker.
The best Batman movies, amazing.
And
amazing.
yeah, so but the Amiga just opened it up for me.
Yeah.
And yes, okay, there was a big piracy issue. We did have a lot of copy games, but actually we had quite a few
not for me. But I think because again, now like piracy is obviously bad. When you're a kid, all you want to do is consume games, and you have no understanding of like how far-reaching piracy is. But I think as well the key with the Amiga is like with the
you're claiming innocence through ignorance.
Yes, I am. With
that works.
With the Amstrad and the Commodore, like a lot of adventure games, a lot of text adventures and stuff. But then I think with the Amiga was the first time I remember thinking, "My God, this can do anything." Like it was the first time like any game would just blow. Like it was the first time I played a graphic adventure. Like Monkey Island, still one of my all-time favorite games, and thinking, "Oh my God, this is like playing a film.
Yeah.
This is like I'm controlling a film."
Deluxe Paint. And I mean, that sounds boring.
I just think about the Sphinx on that.
Yeah, I mean, but Deluxe Paint was so... It was when I realised that in certain games, if they had certain type of file types for the sprites and stuff on the disc, you could go in, alter the sprites or the backgrounds in the game.
You're going to talk about the Untouchables, aren't you?
I was actually going to talk... I think it was a Godfather game or something.
Godfather, yeah, sorry, yeah.
And you could change the backgrounds and put like take the bitmap image or whatever it was and put your black drawer on it basically, save the file, and then when you booted up the game you'd see that in the background. And I just thought that was so
cool.
Like when you compare it to like consoles, which is so locked down and it's very much like, okay, you play the game as it's
presented to you.
Yes. Yeah. But that was like such an early version of kind of modding or something like that. It seems so powerful. And like in Deluxe Paint, you could do kind of animations where it's really basic. So you'd have like
GIFs essentially.
Yeah, so you'd paint one frame and then kind of overlay it on top of the last frame and then kind of make an animation out of it. It's so cool.
I remember as well going into, there was a place in Pontypridd called, where I'm from, Digital Window, and it was like they used to have like rent games out as well as sell. Like it was when PCs were kicking off in the 90s. And I remember that they had like this, because it was the perfect time when Amiga's just on their way out, and in the corner they had all the public domain games, and they were like 50p. And I remember playing amazing games like Bip, and
Scorch Tanks.
Scorch Tanks is still one of the best games ever made. It pisses all over worms. I played it with my brothers. Like he's like 27, 28 now, and we played Scorch Tanks, and it's still just as amazing as it was. The weapons and stuff.
I love the way the earth kind of crumbles afterwards.
Oh yeah, and then you, and when you win, it's like win. It's good. High Octane. Did you ever play High Octane? It was like a really early version of Micro Machines.
No. Oh, was that Team 17? Or am I thinking of Miami Force? I'm not sure.
There was a game called High Octane on the Saturn, which was like a knockoff on PC, which was like a knockoff Wipeout.
Yeah, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of.
No, this was like this is Amiga, so you're talking like really early public domain Amiga, and it had this amazing introduction sequence where it was like a dude standing in front of a cash machine, and he puts his card in and it gets sucked into the machine, and suddenly racing cars. Hush. Does that sound familiar?
It's a common hazard when I'm using the ATM.
All-terrain machine.
Oh, that's what it should have been called. Although, that would have been amazing. ATM, all-terrain machine, and then he's using the cash point.
And then boom! Oh my God! I'm gonna have to find him. Yeah, he really did.
But the thing about the Amiga as well, because let's face it, it's all about the Amiga.
Yes.
The thing about the Amiga, and I know that piracy is bad. And to be fair, we did have a lot of purchase games as well. I mean, Deluxe Paint was one that I know we purchased, and we bought every version. But there was a whole subculture when it came to like I don't know what they're called, hacking, like hackers, like the people who Crackers, that was it. Yeah, I was thinking hackers. That's a bad film with Angelina Jolie, isn't it?
Matthew Lillard with plaits.
Jesus, it's got and it's got the dude out Trainspotting in it. What's his name?
Johnny Lee Miller.
Johnny Lee Miller, yeah. Who went out with Angelina Jolie, I believe.
I think everyone did.
Yeah, she was with Billy Bob Thornton, wasn't she?
Yeah. He was thin.
He had quite translucent skin in a way, didn't he?
Yeah. If you stood in front of a lamp, it would look like a map.
Billy Bob Thornton. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Do you want to pop your skin on the stool?
Stand in front of that lamp. I'm gonna find the treasure. Yeah. Celebrities playing snooker, standing in front of lamps.
Running jokes about people removing skin.
It was Jeffrey Dahmer's favourite app on his phone.
He'd be cracking up if he could see us now. If Jeff could see us now.
Jeffy D.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
The Amiga.
Crackers. Yeah, so the whole subculture of like crackers. And you'd put the disc in, copy disc, and it would come up with some really elaborate artwork with some awesome, like
always
really,
ribboning along,
like real, like,
and it was always like
weird,
Fairlight.
Yeah, it'd be like had some wicked like ambient or like really weird trance music in the background, and you'd be able to select like
amazing music,
always amazing music,
and it was also function keys as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was a whole subculture event. It was very, very cool. And
I remember one where like a certain cracker, which we can't really go into here, but it involved an erotic gif of a devil and an angel, and I remember having, you remember that one?
Yeah.
And I remember it was the only one I had with it on was Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters. Amazing game.
What a game. They need to remake that in HD.
Yes, they do. And it used to, and not Degeneration like they've tried to many times. Oh, God.
Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters is an isometric kind of shooter, is it? Do you shoot?
Yeah.
I know you're running around in an isometric place and it's just
and
mad.
shooting, so yeah, isometric shooting.
Yeah. But they can make it into a wicked because it was so garish and weird and hectic. I just remember being really hectic. You're constantly running around under threat from things. It was just like, it was simulated panic, really. My fourth novel.
So the hacker scene was, because of course at the time I didn't know what a hacker was. I just thought, oh wicked, someone's put cheats on here. That's all I cared about. And most of the games were so hard I could have done with a few cheats, to be honest. So what would you say then, if we go for Amstrad to Commodore to Amiga, what would you say were the key games, not the best games for you that you remember?
Well, I mean, I don't remember much about the Amstrad because I was too young. Because that was.
How can you be? I'm younger than you, and I remember it vividly.
Well,
but then I collect. So yeah.
Yeah, so I don't really remember. I mean, I remember Starglider vividly because it was so. Because it was wireframe.
I'm waiting for you to mention Cursor Sherwood.
It's not going to happen. I mean, I didn't. Like, it really went from Amstrad to.
You must have played Dizzy on the Amstrad.
I played it on the Commodore 64.
Yeah.
But that was around my friend's house who had a Commodore 64, so I didn't have a Commodore 64.
It gets a lot of shtick, but I love the muted colours on the Commodore 64, the greys and browns and like off-peak greens.
It's preferable to the horrible screen, colour bleed of the Spectrum.
The Spectrum to me always struck me as like, and again I have no nostalgia for it, as like office software that people happen to make games for. It all seemed to be like fighting against it.
It's not quite as bad as like the Apple II or something like that.
I've never used an Apple II.
But yeah, it was. It's definitely an enthusiast computer, but like it's too flawed for my liking. But yeah, Commodore 64 was really cool, and like I did play the original Dizzy and maybe Fantasy World if that was on there, but it's definitely the original Dizzy I played.
Fantasy World was the one where you start off with like the jug of water and the loaf of stale bread.
Yes. Yeah. So but yeah, the Dizzy games. So the key games. Well, I mean, key games on the Amiga.
Yes.
It's
well, I instantly gonna. Obviously, we've mentioned Monkey Island, Simon the Sorcerer. amazing. But I was gonna say, but it was on the A1200.
Diggers.
No Second Prize.
Second Prize, the mouse controlled.
Love that game. I
Mouse
loved it.
controlled motorbike game.
Stunt car racer Jeff Crammond.
Stunt car racer is amazing. And
That needs a remake.
I can't believe that no one's made a remake.
They made a really dodgy
Because
version on the PC, like 2003 or something.
But why can't they just make a completely updated version with lush graphics? This is so basic, but it's such a cool idea.
God, every jump you never know if you just smashed a
And it'd be
bit.
so good in multiplayer. Imagine that in multiplayer.
Don't say things
just
like
like
this.
bumping people off so they just like fly off the track and stuff. It'd be so much
And
fun.
the way the screen would like crack as you're like,
Oh yeah, it's that whole thing about like going over a jump and like the tension as you're about to land and thinking, is this just going to shatter my entire car?
We haven't talked about a key part of the Amiga, and that is the copyright protection.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the Worms one, which I've got. It's out in the hallway, but that blue, like weird indigo thing you have to look under light to get the codes.
When you said copyright protection, I
You were
thought
thinking
you
about
meant
the code wheel from Monkey Island.
I thought you meant on the actual disc itself where you click the thing
From
so
like
you can actually copy over it.
No, like the code
the
wheels
right
from Monkey
protection.
Island. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, they were so cool. But like I remember the one for is it Monkey Island 2 where it's like cooking and like it's different ingredients.
Yeah, because the first one is just pirate faces.
Yeah.
The second one cooking different ingredients.
But often it would be. I remember in Future Wars, an early Delphine title,
1989.
probably 1989. About that is. Yes.
Yeah, because 1990 was Operation Stealth.
It must have been before Another World.
Mm.
Yeah.
That
Future
was
Wars must
91.
have been their first title, actually, thinking about
Flashback
it.
was 92.
But in that, that one was like one where it said, right, go to page 7 of the manual,
Yeah.
and 3 lines down, 4th word in, it's like absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
And yeah, and of course that's a particular nightmare for like if you have if you got the crack version and it's like, okay, what do I type in here, because I've got no way. It's not like you could look on the internet for,
Yeah.
for like a PDF version of it.
Yeah.
So then you got this panic and it's like, but this has been cracked. I've seen the crack screen beforehand.
why am I
Like,
doing this?
What's happening? And then you just type in anything and it's like it skips
there you
through.
go.
Nah, okay.
Weirdly,
it really was cracked. They just wanted the authentic experience.
I was playing. Well, I tried to play Cruise for a Corpse on the Amiga the other day. I think it's 60 frames a second.
No,
Is it?
it's not 5.
Every 4 weeks.
Stunt Car Racer as well. Wow.
Which is why I need a remake. I could even now. I have the copy protection, and I couldn't understand it. It was like put in the year if you match up these 3 images on. It's a code wheel, and I tried about 4 or 5 times, and I couldn't get it right.
Really? So even with the actual genuine thing,
Yeah, I had to just not play it. Oh.
it's one option, I suppose.
So what are the classics in the Amiga?
So okay, so I think it's developers as well. You know, like Bitmap Brothers.
Oh,
You look at like Chaos Engine or
node activated.
I was thinking, okay, if you're looking at the classic developers on the Amiga, Bitmap Brothers, you'd have to say that Chaos Engine was probably the one we've got most value out of.
Oh yeah,
Because they made Speedball 2, which I was never that into.
Well, yeah, it always again it seemed more of a multiplayer game, and I was it was just me. So
Yeah. Gods, which is too hard.
Brutal Sports Football, which is one of the most amazing games ever made.
That was not Bitmap Brothers.
No, but it just
But it is.
it
really
is a
good,
better
yeah.
version of Speedball 2.
Yeah. Again, frame rate. Wow. And that's a problem. What else? What else
Needs
did
a remake.
They did. Yeah, Chaos Engine was pretty much the one.
What about Heimdall?
Yes.
It was good.
A1200 only. I
Really?
think so. And CD32 as well.
Oh my god. We're gonna start talking about Little Devil soon if we carry on down this path.
Yeah. Or Oscar. Launch title.
Or Burn Cycle. Wow, that's a good game.
Or I had a CD32.
Really? I think you're the first person I've ever met.
I had a CD32. I also had an Atari Jaguar, but I had a CD32 and it had Microcosm with music by Rick Wakeman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that was just like a Space Harrier type shooter, and of course, it was like on rails essentially. Although you could make certain decisions at certain points, but it was a Space Harrier type thing, and I hate Space Harrier type shooters.
Yeah.
And it had like digitized obviously pre-rendered graphics. You were in someone's body. It was like kind of inner space, but you're
Oh, right,
shooting
yeah,
the
this rings
sparks
bells now.
on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
They released a version of Brutal Sports Football for the CD32, and I'd be intrigued to see if the frame rate's improved.
Probably not. I'd imagine.
Well, thanks for shooting my balloon down before I didn't have a chance to blow it up.
Yeah, so in terms of classes, so Bitmap Brothers, I have to say, Chaos Engine is probably the one really for them.
What about recently discovered, as opposed to at the time, was I was going to say Xevious then, Xenon 2 Mega Blast.
That is a good game. That is a very good game, and it had wicked music in it.
The frame rate of Xenon 2 Mega Blast on the Master System is so bad that if you just keep firing the game, because you know there's multiple paths, if you don't know which way to go, you can just hammer the fire button and it'll slow the game down so much you've got like 2.5 weeks to make your decision.
What's that movie with Kim Basinger?
That was LA Confidential.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah, so that's like other like Sensible Software. They were a key developer on the Amiga.
Sensible Soccer was really good.
Sensible Soccer was good, but I can't look past Cannon Fodder because that was.
Go on, do your bit with your brother.
Well, I was going to say actually, there's two things I want to say about Cannon Fodder. One of them is that it was my first proper all-day session. Was playing that game.
You finished it in like 15 hours.
15 hours. I played it for 15 hours straight, and I did finish it. But it took 15 hours. It's not like I did 15 hours and then redid it.
Did it have passwords?
No, you saved it.
You actually saved it on here.
But what you do is split into kind of worlds. I can't remember what they're called. Like worlds, and then each of them was split into missions. So but some worlds would have like 5 missions, and so you could save it at the start of a world. So you had to then you get to the end of that mission, and it's like, okay, how many people have I lost along that way? Do I reload it and try again? It's always that kind of. So by the time you get to the 5th mission of that one, it's like, oh my god, I'm losing so many people here. It's like, do I reload and try it all?
So what happened if you kept the same person for a while? What did they shoot further? Have more health? How did it? What was the?
Yeah, because they ranked up.
Yeah,
so you start off with like Jules and Jops and
like Private, then
Campbell, isn't it? And the more missions you did, the more they leveled up. And I think it just made a difference to the range.
Which is key in that game.
Which is very important.
Close your eyes for a sec. I
can see the graveyard. I can see Jules and Jops.
What you can't see is John here singing his awful lyrics over the top and ruining it for everyone.
Thankfully I never had that experience. So... But Sensible Software also did WizKid. Sequel to Wizball.
That is amazing. I bought that.
It's so irreverent.
So good.
It's so good.
The golden shower thing and the whole thing about like I remember a bit where you go into like you have to get a newspaper and jump on a body to go on a toilet and there's a dog and you go to a secret world. Brilliant.
What a game.
Yeah.
What a game. It's just a simple game as well. Because
the
basic premise was
blocks.
Well, yeah, it was almost like a kind of breakout type thing, but you were
I
flying around the screen as a
breakout
head
games,
and
by
just
the way.
knocking them off.
There was a game on the Switch, a budget game released called Dolings, and it's basically Breakout, and you just get like bonuses and stuff. I must have played about 200 levels of it. Breakout games. Like, don't really care about Asteroid type games or Pac-Man games. If I see a Breakout clone, it's happening. It's happening.
So that's Sensible Software, or what are they? I mean, there was Psygnosis.
Did they do? No, Team 17 was Benefactor, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Psygnosis were the ones that were famous for a really rich artwork.
Yes.
So, and they did stuff like Shadow the Beast. They did Anarchy. What was the one with the owl? Was that called Anarchy?
Agony.
Agony, that was it.
And the sequel, Agony Aunt. I'll edit that out. Or will I? I won't.
They did Leander. They did, and they're all really like lush and rich,
I'm
but
pretty
also quite shallow.
I'm pretty sure that Leander was released on the Mega Drive.
It's quite a good game.
And you'll be able to. Hang on.
You've seen the Alpha Explorer thing. There's Landstalker. So
This is it. Is that Leander?
Legend of
Galahad. Turn her over.
You can't quite read it. Pretty much, yes, that is it. With the plumed,
Yeah.
the plume coming out of the
Yeah,
helmet.
I've never played it, but
It's good.
there's no point. You may as well. It's Leander on the Amiga is Legend of Galahad on the
Wow.
by ear.
Okay.
Put up it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Why? Yeah, you can see by Psygnosis down the bottom.
Really bad artwork as well. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't show anything.
Why not just call it Leander? What difference does it make? Anyway, so yeah, that was them, and they also published Blood Money by DMA Design.
That was a side-scrolling
shooter, yeah, by DMA Design, and of course DMA Design went on to create Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did pretty well.
They did alright for themselves, didn't they?
I wonder if the same people who were Rockstar North. Anyway, sorry.
Well, speaking of Amiga developers who went on to bigger things, I think we've mentioned this before. Pinball Fantasies, Pinball Dreams, Pinball Fantasies, Pinball Illusions, made by Digital Illusions. Digital Illusions became DICE, who now make the Battlefield games.
Slightly different to Pinball Illusions.
A little bit different.
Still weird how the physics in those games are better than pinball games now.
It is weird, yeah. They were wicked games, yeah, really good.
Again, pinball games, love them.
And also, I suppose the Amiga era was where is the reason I will always defend Peter Molyneux, despite any nonsense he comes out with now, like Broken Promises, all this kind of stuff. Like, when you look at his legacy, when you look at the games that he was developing with Bullfrog at that time,
Syndicate,
like Populous 2, Syndicate, and then later like stuff like Magic Carpet, they were all quite... And Flood, which is one of my favourite platformers on the Amiga.
with one of the best endings.
Yeah, so good. Any of that. Spoiler alert, it's dark. And yeah, so he made all these wicked games, really good. Syndicate's such a good game.
Yeah.
And you know, a precursor to stuff like Streets of Rogue, where it's like there are genuinely different ways of approaching a way of...
I like how you use Streets of Rogue as a benchmark.
Yeah.
That would be a running theme in this.
If it weren't for Syndicate.
There'd be no Streets of Rogue. Yeah, again, all those kind of point-and-clicky ones. Settlers, I remember playing spent a lot of time with. Being too young to understand it, but I loved how I loved how they built stuff.
Not too young to wait for the introduction sequence to load, though.
Yeah, which you couldn't skip.
No.
Yeah, where it's just like a really overly cartoony German, like going through...
really
like,
slow as well. It's just...
and then I remember the dog chasing... Yeah, it was cool, but after the third or fourth time, you're like, I wouldn't mind playing the game. What I loved about Settlers was when you clicked on like build a blacksmith or whatever, they would like... and then they'd walk to the other side, and then... and it would like slowly build. I used to love just watching that because it was really smooth animation.
Yeah, it was a really neat game, man. I used to love the kind of swaying grass and stuff. It was quite atmospheric.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where it's just too hard, and then...
I think Blue Byte made it. I think it was a German company called Blue Byte.
They're still making them. I think they've got Settlers like... They got Settlers 7 or something like that. And I think they've got Settlers Online now, which I...
Will never play.
Yeah, so... but yeah, they were really cool. They were really atmospheric.
Mm-hmm.
But oh yeah, I was going to say, just remembered Psygnosis. Are they responsible for Hired Guns? I think they might be.
I'll have to take it. I never played Hired Guns. It bypassed me.
So good.
Yeah.
Sci-fi, like Eye of the Beholder type thing with 4 screens. You can play it 4-player. Good.
What was it, like 4 mice?
Yes. Or I can guess link them up. Or you play it single player. When you play it single player, you either control each screen individually, so you're clicking around, moving them around, and like exclusively from each other, or you can like click a little button on each screen, each of the 4 screens. You can click a little button and move them together, so one will follow the other, sort of thing. So whoever's screen you're clicking on to move around, the other one will follow.
What was the frame rate like?
Well, it didn't really make that much difference
because it was tile-based.
It was tile-based, yeah. So it's like Eye of the Beholder. But the sound in that game, the music was unbelievable.
Right. You've just reminded me of Dreamweb, which is one of the best games ever made, unfortunately. So
Top-down, dystopian.
Oh, the music on that. I listen to it. It's really weird, actually, because I didn't play Dreamweb recently. I've got it on PC, but I just listened to the soundtrack, and it like leaps between really cyberpunk, atmospheric kind of like, that kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden it'll be like really manic trance with like looped speech samples, and the guy that was the only soundtrack the guy ever did. I've forgotten his name now, but he just like disappeared, and I thought it was amazing. It's still good to listen to now, even as like a 45-minute piece of just solid music. It's amazing. And you talking about hired games and like Eye of the Beholder reminded me of my experience with that genre, which was Liberation. Captive 2. I never played the first Captive. I played Captive 2 Liberation.
Well, the original Captive was kind of neat, but it was also extremely frustrating because the
I think you might be thinking about the sequel as well.
the kind of gameplay loop was essentially you go into like a facility, it's like Eye of the Beholder type or Dungeon Master type.
Oh,
thing.
Is this where you have to like set off a bomb and then get out?
Yes.
Yeah, that's like
Every
Bloodshot on the
time.
Mega Drive.
Yeah,
and
so you walk through, you get through the facility, kick ass, and then you set off the bomb and you got time to get out, and it's like you have to remember where you've come from. I love you, Dad. Britt, you got a copy of Freelancer up there. That is one of my favourite Elite style games. Except unlike Elite, it's not really boring. It's quite fast paced. It's a good game. Got Settlers 2 Gold Edition. No, it's Age of Empires, sorry. Boring version of Settlers, if you like.
There's 2 games I wanted to mention. One of them was Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot believe we haven't mentioned Hunter.
Such a key game. Talk about open world.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the frame rate, I think it was like 55. It wasn't quite 60. But this was a game that I didn't play it properly because it was too in-depth for me as a kid. I don't think it's going to fit this. Oh, hang on. There we go. Still in there?
Yeah, but in there.
But, yeah, Hunter was another open world game.
I've
Because
literally got a picture of a floppy disk on the
floppy disk with obviously codes on it. That's what it was all about. But I used to play a game on that with my brother called Stan's Vans because I don't remember the enemy uniform was a red baseball cap. So I would literally just get like a bicycle and a tank, get them all on a hill, and then put the enemy uniform on. So the enemies would like come up to me, and then I'd take it off, and I'd run around all the vehicles I'd put together, just like talking in a monologue as if I was like a car salesman to them, and they were chasing me. I loved it. Still love it. Stan's Vans. That's what my brother calls that to this day. So Hunter was like, I remember playing Grand Theft Auto after that and thinking, oh, this is just like a slightly worse version of Hunter.
You're still playing Grand Theft Auto online today.
Thinking,
So,
this is just a slightly worse version of Hunter.
yeah, okay, the frame rate might be a little bit better.
They
but
fired me from IGN. And I don't know if you remember this, Dragon Quest? Dungeon Quest, sorry, not Dragon Quest.
Do I remember Dungeon Quest? Oh, is this a text adventure?
It's a text adventure with like static visuals, but they've got like a looped sound effect on each level.
God.
So like you'd be in like a forest, and it would just go. Ah,
Is this the Amiga version?
ah,
1989.
Key year for the Amiga.
3 discs from 1989. That's impressive.
But it's got a terrible ending. But it was, and also this game, right? With on the front, you obviously like some sort of like chic with a fairy flying on the back of a giant eagle
With a woman
over
bent
like
over in front of you.
yeah
So-
over like an Arabian sort of landscape.
Yeah.
In the game, you are a pauper walking through a medieval forest.
It's not quite the same. Is
It's not quite the same, but yeah, they are 2 key. I used to play them all the time
it?
because again with the text adventure, I loved it. Although I didn't understand what I was typing in, I felt like I was in control of it, and it was like this whole world to be explored. Even though it was really
Well,
just about
that was
20
one of the
static
things that was
screens.
very cool about the home computer. Like it's one good thing about being British is the fact that
The one good thing about being British.
thing about being British is the fact that home computers were such a big deal, and it was the video game industry was not dominated by consoles at the time because you had such a variety of games, like in terms of like text adventures, you just can't have basically on a
Oh
console.
my god, can you imagine a virtual keyboard on a console?
And I mean, like, even now, they haven't quite worked out how to do, like, graphic adventures, point-and-click adventures on console. And then, and then you've got the whole thing about, like, having save discs and things like that. These are the, or, like, even, like, second disk drives and things like that.
A DF1.
Yeah, exactly, because you couldn't have a game the scale of, like, Monkey Island 2, which came on 11 discs on a console, so it was quite a big deal at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hunter that was your kind of like revelatory experience with open world.
Yeah.
I'd say that Damocles was mine, which was Mercenary 2.
Right.
And in that
was on the Amiga as well, wasn't it?
That was on the Amiga, and you basically you start off by landing on a planet, and the overarching storyline is that this comet called Damocles is heading towards a planet and it's going to blow it up, and you've got like a timer in the corner ticking down, and basically you have to kind of work you around an open world, flying from planet to planet. You can like fly around the planet and then take off, like No Man's Sky or something like that, and just go to another planet.
But better.
It
wasn't as buggy.
And but what I found amazing and like mind blowing about it was that this whole thing was going on in the background. You could see the comet slowly going towards this
Could
planet.
you approach the comet?
You could approach it. I think maybe you died if you hit it, sort of thing.
Makes sense.
But it was approaching, and what would happen is that the timer would go down. You could go wherever you wanted, pick up whatever you wanted. You just do anything.
Were there enemies in the game?
Not really. It was more of an exploration game.
Good.
And you were picking up stuff, and you could. I know you could pick up bombs, and this was really cool. A really cool feature was you pick up bombs, and you could set how powerful they were. So, and it would be based on the number keys. So if you set a bomb at like level 1, it would like blow up like a sofa. If you set it at level 3, it might blow up a building.
When you say so, you could go into buildings.
You go into buildings, you just fly around. You go along roads, and you just.
Oh, you couldn't get out of the ship. You could fly into places.
You go out, you get out of the ship. Yeah.
This is the best game ever made.
It's amazing,
Yeah.
and it's so desolate as well because of the limitations at the time.
Good.
But anyway, and like the bomb, if you set it at like 9 or whatever, you'd literally just blow up a planet. It's just blow up, and the whole thing would be gone. But anyway, what really blew my mind was that if you just left the timer to go down,
which took how long roughly?
I'm not sure. A few hours.
So like 3 or 4. Okay.
Yeah. What would happen is that you'd be on a planet, and you'd just see this bright flash, the screen would flicker, and it would come up with a message at the bottom, and it would just say, Damocles is struck or whatever, planet Eris has been destroyed, and that's it.
Oh,
You just keep going. You just keep walking around, you keep doing your own thing, and it's like, that was so weird to have a game where the main purpose, the main thrust of the narrative, it's like, well, that's done, but it doesn't matter because you're still just living in this world. I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's really cool.
So, would you say, on balance, that the Amiga is the best console/computer of all time, of its time, with bearing in mind like the kind of the cracker scene, the public domain scene, the sheer variety of games, how developers and publishers are kind of just trying anything.
It was, yeah,
There were
and
no
it came at a really
microtransactions.
perfect time because it was still a time when a team could be built of, it could be one person making like a public domain game, or it could be a group like Sensible Software where it's like 5 or 6 people in a room just like trying new things out, and there was genuine innovation, and I mean there was nonsense as well. And to be honest, a lot of the ports to a lot of the arcade ports or console ports to the Amiga were poor, like, you know, like Street Fighter, because it had a one-button joystick. I mean, what are you going to do with that?
I think this is why when I think back to other games I loved, it was either like something like Stunt Car Race, which is like, you know, one button will do, or it was mouse or keyboard based.
Yes.
Otherwise, the limitations really sort of stuck out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like it would have poor versions of like, say like Disney tie-ins or something like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure you get like Aladdin and stuff like that, but the frame rate would always be a bit poorer.
But you'd be fun because you'd be playing Arabian Nights anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
is such an amazing game. Made by was it Chrysalis? I want to say Chrysalis.
Yeah, Chrysalis. Yeah.
And they made Soccer Kid, which was such a good game, such a cool game, like where your main like weapon is a football, and you were doing like little keepy uppies and stuff, and then booting it at enemies.
On the subject, it's behind you. I'm not going to go down and get it now. But there's a game on the. Was it that, or was it Hurricanes? Where it's really cool. Where like with Hurricanes, I think it's based on like some sort of American kids show. It's only on the Genesis. you get a football and you boot it like off screen at enemies. So you
Mm.
boot them, but the way the ball comes back to you it would come through the screen and you'd stop it and carry on.
Yeah, that sounds very much like Soccer
It's
Kids.
I thought that was really cool.
It is really cool.
It's because it is really cool.
It's because it is very, very cool. Yeah, so they were cool games. Yeah, it was always the ones which were kind of unique to the system, really.
Yeah.
That's basically what it was. But there was so many people making games because it was so easy to make before that. Like they weren't, I mean, because they weren't on cartridges, so they could be distributed so easily. If you wanted to release something on public domain, like the whole disc copying thing would give you that distribution network, but which you couldn't really have on consoles, which is why you get the situation in like the post home computer era, post Amiga era, where when consoles were totally dominant, say in the 90s and early 2000s, where actually like the indie scene almost like died away, really, didn't it? Like now it's thriving and which is great, and it's more like having that public domain back. But there was a time where there was no real digital distribution, but at the same time consoles were so dominant that basically it was so controlled that basically all you had was like console games, really, wasn't it? Because I mean PC was a mess in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
And it was,
So to end this because we could talk about Net Your Rose on the PS1 forever. So we stick to Amstrad and Amigas, sticking to the British consoles and Spectrum and Commodore. Best game on the system for you for Amstrad?
Well, Star Glider, because that was the first one I played.
Yeah. And when I think about the Amstrad, I always think about Curse of Sherwood. So that's going to be mine. It's one of the first games I ever played. It's basically like a retro game of the week. So, Commodore 64, first name that jumps to mind.
Dizzy, but it's the one that was the one I played most on it.
I did love Last Ninja, but yeah, I'm the same as you. Dizzy was an adventure. Of course, I'm going to play Dizzy.
It seemed really immersive at the time, even though it's very basic. And I can understand why they'd struggle to get Kickstarter financing now. It's so dated.
There's no need for that anymore. It's done.
Yeah.
And yeah, for the Amiga, Monkey Island, I can't see past Monkey Island for the Amiga.
I'm not sure I can either, to be honest.
It was the perfect. Like for me, it totally defined it because it was so colourful. It was so, and it's so rare to get humour through just text.
Yeah, I'd say that Monkey Island was the one. Like a lot of the other classics, if you like, on the Amiga, if you went back to them now, they'd feel very clunky. Like the original Syndicate was amazing at the time, but I think I'd get frustrated by the inability to like turn the camera and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas Secret Monkey Island, like I played the remastered version, with the new graphics and stuff.
Yeah.
And I like the way they remastered the graphics, but I was quite happy to hit F12 and like go back or whatever it was. And
did the music change with it as well?
Yeah, everything changes. It just shifts back, and it still looked and sounded amazing.
And to end Erwin De Wit's question, which is awesome, board game. For me, Hero Quest was the turning point because it was the first time I played a game. I was in Penarth at a friend's house, and I remember thinking, board games don't have to just be like moving around the board. They can be where you can just get really involved in it and work together. And there's random chance beyond just rolling a dice. You can. Yep. So Hero Quest would, on balance, be one of my favourite board games because it was just a gateway.
Yeah, it was a gateway to that immersive kind of thing. Well, I'd say on a Hero Quest up to a point, but more Space Crusade was the one I played more.
I know.
And because it made me think of, it was like being it's closest to being in like James Cameron's Aliens.
Oh, I was trying to think of the name of the ship really, then, which is called the
Sulaco. No, well that's I was going to say Nosferatu.
Nostromo?
Nostromo was
Nosferatu, by the way, to end this video, Nosferatu on the Amstrad or the Commodore was an amazing game where you play Jonathan Harker trying to like get the deeds from Dracula's house. Terrifying cover art for a kid. It costs a fortune now, and it burns me that I don't own it from when I was a kid.
Skate or Die was one of my favourite games on Commodore 64.
Really?
Yep. Played that a lot.
Isometric?
Yes. wasn't very good, probably, but I remember loving it at the time.
So, Erwin, thank you for the question. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's
May have
good.
gone off topic and focused entirely on the Amiga. Who knows?
But that's because it's the best
Oh,
machine.
I'm glad we've got that cleared up. See, any other questions? Send them through on the Twitter comments, and we'll hopefully turn it around to talking about the Amiga again.
Yeah.
That's it. Bye bye.